I have another scary story for you guys. This one was sent to me by Mandy, but before I read the story, I want to talk about a couple things really quick. I just hit 50K, so I tried to find a story that was a little bit longer. I still want to do something for 50K, but I figured that this was nice, at least for now. This can satisfy you guys' needs. I also wanted to talk about my Ouija board video really quick because I just uploaded that like 2 days ago. The response is absolutely insane. The first time I did a Ouija board video, it was really bad. It was awful. Every time that I watch that video, which I try to avoid at all costs because I hate it so much, I just realized how stupid we were, and we took it as such a joke that it's awful. We were so shitty. But when we recontacted T, and she was so nice to us and just so forgiving, I don't think that we could fake that if we wanted to. I know that there's not that many people who are skeptical of it, but there are some people, and I just wanted to go over it really quickly. We went over a lot of rules, and I've watched so many different videos so I could correct my mistakes so that we could recontact her and not do anything wrong because we fucked up. And I'm in so much shock at just how nice. I don't get it. I'm sitting in my guest house right now. After the first video that we made, the first Ouija board video, I couldn't even come back in my guest house. Like, the atmosphere was just so dark and so deep and just like so heavy that you couldn't even come back in here. I walked in here and it was like cool, it was fun. I'm like, T's hanging out with me. She's probably around here somewhere. What's up, girl? It's just amazing the difference. So thank you guys for the support on that video. If you guys haven't seen the video, so you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'll put that down below. Basically just did a Ouija board session. We made friends with T, who's a ghost that lives in my guest house, and she loves us and we love her back. But anyways, okay, I'm gonna get into the story. I promise I'm done rambling, but thank you guys so much for 50K. I'm in shock. I don't know how to thank you guys enough for the support that you give me. I'm a piece of shit. Thank you for loving me. Also throwing this out here really quickly, for those of you who don't watch all of my videos, who just kind of stick to my scary videos, I'm gonna start uploading 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. So Monday, Wednesday will be kind of like normal videos, whatever the fuck I decide to make. Saturdays will be scary stories. I'm also gonna start streaming on YouNow, and let's get right to the fucking story. I'm sorry for rambling for so long. So again, this was sent to me by Mandy, and this story is called I Wanted a Job But Was Given a Nightmare. Before I get ahead of myself, I need to make something clear. This is not to be taken lightly. I'm still fucking messed up from this. I'm still a fucking mess in general. And you need to know, I never meant to cause anyone harm. I never meant for it to go that far. My name's Cheryl, but my friends call me Cher, like the singer. I'm 22 years old and I live in Whately, Massachusetts. It's a small town, simple, sweet, and nothing ever happened here. Past tense, yeah, things have changed. Between my freshman and sophomore year of college, I decided to get a summer job to help keep up with all of my student loans and my cell phone bill. I searched Craigslist for a while in the job section, hoping to land one close by so that I could take a bike to work, because my car was such a piece of crap. After applying to a few convenience stores and gas stations, yes, I was desperate, a post for a housekeeper caught my eye. It was from a local bed and breakfast, and they said they needed extra help for the summer and was looking for someone to start as soon as possible. They had to be 18 years or older, had to have reliable transportation, and had to have no criminal record. I was more than qualified. Plus it was close and paid $12 an hour. I replied to the post and sent them my resume immediately. A few emails back and forth with the owner, and I'd set up an interview for the following day. The next afternoon, I had my brother give me a ride. It was an interview, so I was dressed to impress my new potential boss and didn't want to ruin my outfit with sweat. The summer heat made it too much to ride my bike that day. I took in the view of the building once my brother drove off. It was 4 stories tall and seemed to be pretty old. There was a small stream on the right of it, with vines growing up the same side. The once white paint was faded to gray, and chips showed in the older wood here and there. The front doors were wooden and looked heavy. Detailed designs were carved into their faces. As I continued to study the building, I hadn't noticed an older gentleman approaching me to my left. I glanced quickly and jumped, obviously startled. "I'm sorry, dear. I didn't mean to startle you." The man gave me a small smile. He was relatively tall, with broad shoulders. His smile formed lines at the corner of his mouth and under his gray eyes. His face was round, and he had a bit of stubble that matched the color pattern of his salt and pepper hair. He held out his hand and took mine in a firm hold, shaking lightly. "I'm Dale, the innkeeper, and you must be Cheryl." I shook his hand in return and smiled happily, realizing he would be my boss and my interviewer. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Dale. Well, let's get started, shall we?" The interview went fairly well. Dale took me inside the bed and breakfast. It was called the Lataf Inn. Dale basically gave me a tour of the place as we talked. He asked me about my education, what I was going to school for, how long I've lived in the area, my ambitions in life. It felt more like a casual conversation of 2 people getting to know one another than an interview. The first floor was a dining area. It had all wooden tables and chairs, and there was a long computer to the left that had set up like a coffee shop and a door that led to the kitchen. And in the far corner was a rustic-looking pair of love seats that seemed to offer a place for reading. Basically, it looked like I had stepped into the 50s or 60s. The rest of the Lataf Inn was no exception. The second floor held the game room and 10 guest rooms, lined above a very narrow hallway that had a large mirror hanging on the wall at the end of it, and a staircase that led down to the basement, which was actually renovated into what Dale called the master. That's it. Just the master. No suite or room at the end of it. As we stepped into the master and he turned on the light, I felt a shiver go down my spine. It was dark, and the air felt damp. In front of us was a very old-looking king-size bed that had to be at least a century old, with 2 dressers and 2 nightstands to match it. We continued to talk, but the 5 minutes that Dale quickly showed me around the room, I felt nauseous. My legs felt weak, and I just wanted the interview to be over so that I could get the hell out of there. The interview ended shortly after, and once Dale and I parted on the first floor, him going back into the kitchen, I nearly bolted out of the building, calling my brother to pick me up as I waited in the far corner of the parking lot. As he pulled up and I got into the car, I took one last glance at the Lataf Inn and noticed a dark figure standing next to the small, lower window on the right of the building next to the stream. It was oval-shaped, and it was positioned where I thought the master had been, but I remember the only windows in that room were square, and were positioned on the other side. I didn't think much of it on the ride home. Dale emailed me later that night. I had gotten the job. I was excited yet nervous at the same time, dreading having to clean the master because of how easy I had felt down there earlier. Thinking back to it made me remember the dark figure I saw in the oval window. How come I hadn't seen that window when Dale gave me the tour? And come to think of it, Dale said they were just opening back up for the season and no one was supposed to check in until the next week. There's no way Dale could have made it from the kitchen to the master room that quickly. It's weird. 2 days before my first day of training, my best friend and roommate from college, Jessica, FaceTimed me. Yo, what's up, Cher? How's your summer going? Hey, Jess, it's going all right, I shrugged. I got the job at the creepy inn I was telling you about. No way. Jess immediately sat up from her laying position and brought her tablet closer to her face, her eyes wide with excitement. She's always been into creepy things like ghosts and graveyards and that crap, so her reaction didn't surprise me. That's so cool. Do you think they give tours? I rolled my eyes and shook my head. She could be unbelievable at times. I don't think so, Jess. I'm not even sure the place is haunted. I just said it was creepy. But you saw someone, right? A weird and dark figure? And you felt like someone was watching you. It's totally haunted. My eyes were probably seeing a shadow from a shelf or something. Plus, I'm not going to ask my boss to give a tour for you. I don't want to put my job at risk before I've even started. Jess gave a huff and put her chin on her hand. Whatever, buzzkill. You never want to do anything fun. We talked for a few more minutes before hanging up for the night. Truth be told, I didn't want to think about my new job being haunted because deep down, the thought made me uneasy. I had a feeling, a gut feeling, that something was not right with the Lataf Inn. A few weeks later, I didn't know why I was so worried. Work was going great. I loved my coworkers, Barbara and Lacey, and Dale seemed to be the best boss. He let me choose my own hours, and he only assigned me to the main rooms. I didn't have to clean the master, which was fine with me. I did basic housekeeper things, cleaned the bathroom, vacuumed, dusted, made the beds, that kind of stuff. It could get boring, but it was easy money and didn't take much energy out of me. I rode my bike home one Thursday afternoon in the beginning of July to see a strange car parked next to my brother's. I automatically assumed it was one of my brother's football friends from college, and just went inside up the stairs to my room. I froze in the hallway as I rounded the corner to my room. My door was wide open, and I always shut my door before leaving the house. I got a strange feeling in my stomach and hesitantly walked inside, and just as I stepped 3 feet inside, I heard the door creak from behind me. I quickly whipped around in time to see a blur of colors approach and basically tackle me backwards. Surprise! Jess happily yelled out before getting off of me. Jess, what the fuck? You scared the shit out of me. I sat up and faced her, still panting slightly from the scare. Oh, lighten up. I've just come to visit you over the weekend. My parents wouldn't stop getting on my ass over my grades, and I needed a vacation. She spoke the last word slowly as she leaned back against my bed and put her hands behind her head. You didn't think to call first? We don't even know if my parents are going to be okay with this. Relax, Cher. I called your mom last week, and she said it was fine. I may be overwhelming sometimes, but I still have manners, you know. With that, she sat up and mimicked my sitting position before putting on her famous smirk. So give me the details. What's your job like? Have you heard anything yet? Seen anything? Did you find any secret passageways that lead to a secret satanic workshop? I laughed at my best friend's outburst. She could be such a kid sometimes. It's all right. No, and yes. I smirked back at her. Obviously, the last answer was a lie, and she caught on to it. But before I could react, a pillow was thrown in my face. Oh, shut it. I know you're lying. I laughed again, hugging the pillow to my stomach as I shrugged. You make it too easy for me sometimes, Jess. Yeah, laugh at my interests. I haven't even seen the place and I can just tell it's haunted. Look, I said, only the master room is creepy, and it's probably because it's the darkest room in the inn. I haven't seen or heard anything since I started working there. If it was haunted, I probably would have quit by now. Well, Have you asked any of your coworkers if they've experienced anything? They've been there a lot longer, right? They must know something. I can feel it in my bones that this place is haunted, Cher. Jess grabbed my shoulders and shook me a little, as if the action was going to suddenly convince me that her assumptions were true. Jess, I'm not going to ask my coworkers if they've experienced anything paranormal. I don't want them thinking I'm weird or anything. I want to keep this job, you know. Besides, I wouldn't even know how to work into that conversation. Jess got quiet for a moment before smirking again. I'll pay you $5. This girl knew me too well. 15. 10. Deal. And we shook on it. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. The next day came too soon for comfort. I really liked Barbara and Lacey and didn't want them to think less of me if I asked them about ghosts and stuff. It turned out that Barbara was sick and couldn't come in, so it was just Lacey and I. I wish Lacey had been sick too. We were both cleaning room number 4 when I finally worked up enough nerve to get my lips moving as I dusted off one of the nightstands. Lacey, do you find this place to be creepy? Lacey had her back to me and was in the middle of making the bed when she froze at my question and slowly looked over her shoulder. What do you mean by creepy? She asked. I shrugged and turned my attention back to the nightstand to continue dusting. I mean, this place is so old and dark. Do you ever feel uncomfortable, as if you're being watched or something? Silence. The one thing I dreaded when thinking about how this conversation would go. When Lacey didn't respond after a few moments, I stopped what I was doing and turned around to face her. She was staring off to her right, obviously in deep thought, causing the wrinkles on her forehead to become very noticeable. Lacey? She snapped her attention back to me and gave me a soft smile, as if trying to comfort my nerves over the whole situation. It wasn't working. I'm sorry, hun. The older I get, the more I seem to zone out. I guess you could say the building itself can be unnerving at times, but you get used to it. She turned back to begin fluffing up the pillows. I could have just left the conversation with that. I should have just left the conversation with that. But I didn't. I guess. But I mean, have you ever heard anything? Or have you ever seen anything? Like, not normal? My voice was shaking a bit, and I nervously fiddled around with the hand of the duster. Lacey turned to me once more, her expression having completely changed from that of worry-free to exhaustion. In my 12 years of working here, I can tell you that I've had my moments of uneasiness. Many moments. I can understand why you'd feel this way. Barbara felt the same when she first started working here too. But as time goes on, you'll see it's not that bad. Yes, the floorboards will creak and the lights will flicker. They're old. And you'll hear strange voices and sounds. They're just our customers in their rooms. I can assure you that there's nothing to worry about or be afraid of, Cher. I felt like a weight had been lifted off of my chest. I knew it was all in my head. The building was just old. Jess was wrong and would be disappointed, and I'd have to grill her for making me ask about something so stupid, but at least my mind could be at peace now. We finished the top room floors in no time, and it was time to move down to the master, unfortunately. Usually Barbara and Lacey just cleaned it together, but since Barbara was out sick, I had to fill in. As I started to make my way to the back, Lacey stepped in front of me and blocked my way. It's okay, dear. I can clean the master on my own. You can go home early and enjoy your summer, she said as she took the cleaning supplies I was carrying from me. It's okay, Lacey. I'm happy to help. I don't really have many plans. I smiled, trying to reassure her that I could help. I didn't want her to think that I was too afraid after our conversation earlier. No, don't worry about it. I insist. You go home and enjoy the rest of your day. She gave me another soft smile before turning around and walking away. Well, thank you. I began to walk in the other direction to grab my things from the housekeeper's closet, but didn't want to leave on such an odd note. Don't forget about the oval window, I called out to Lacey, taking a quick look back. She stopped for a moment and quickly looked back at me with wide eyes, as if my small joke horrified her. I frowned, about to ask what was wrong before I heard the voices of a few people coming back up from the stairs behind me. I looked at them for confirmation that they were just heading to their rooms, and they were. When I looked back to where Lacey was, she was gone. Why did she react so strangely? See? That just proves there's something going on at your job, and she obviously knows about it. Ever since I had gotten back from work and told Jess the truth about what happened, which I probably should have lied now that I look back on it, she's been a fly constantly buzzing in my ear. Jess, would you cool it? Okay, yeah, the conversation took a weird turn. But remember, she's an older lady, and hey, Barbara was out sick. Lacey could have been coming down with something, and that would explain why she kept drifting off and acting so strange. I wasn't lying. Lacey could have been getting sick. That would provide a simple and logical explanation for her behavior. But I didn't believe what I was saying. Jess rolled her eyes and huffed at me, crossing her arms over her chest. She was just frustrated because I didn't want to believe she was right about her paranormal instincts. What are you losers arguing about in here? Jess and I turned our heads towards the door to see my brother Chris leaning against the doorframe with his hands in his pockets. He was trying to seem cool to impress Jess. Barf. Beat it, it's none of your business. I didn't want him to get wrapped up in this too. Cher doesn't think the Lataf Inn is haunted, but I do, Jess butted in. She really wouldn't drop it. Oh, it most definitely is haunted, Cher. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could my brother agree with Jess? He didn't even know the situation. I turned myself on my bed to fully face him with challenging eyes. And how would you know? How would both of you even know? You're just assuming. I'm the one who works there, and it's fine. It's just creepy because it's old. I told you that I listened to my instincts, Cher, Jess exclaimed. While I don't have Jess's instincts, my buddy Peter lives right across the street from the Latoff and says that they hear and see strange things all the time. Chris shrugged his shoulders. Why do you think I've only slept over there once? Jess immediately sprang up from the bed and rushed over to my brother, her mouth moving a mile a minute as she tried to squeeze as much details out of my brother as she could. Chris just stood there, a huge smile plastered on his face as he answered every question Jess could throw at him. I didn't know what game he was trying to play, lying to my best friend like that about something she took seriously just to get into her pants, but I wasn't having it. How about we sleep over at Peter's house tonight then? I asked, standing up so both of them knew I was serious. If your claims are true and the Latoff Inn is really haunted, we should go see for ourselves. Jess's jaw hung low in shock. Are you sure you're my best friend? Cher? Hello? Get out of her body, demon. Jess stepped over to me and began to shake me by my shoulders, making me laugh. Jess, cut it out. I'm serious. I want to settle these assumptions and know the truth. She squealed happily, and we both looked at my brother, who was standing there with a stunned and what seemed to be terrified expression on his face. You two want to sleep over at his house? No, the three of us are going to sleep over at his house, and you're going to call him. I smirked triumphantly, knowing my brother was going to get caught in his lie. He was quiet for a few moments before stepping out of my room and into the hallway. Jess and I stood there confused for a minute, wondering what he was doing before he stepped back inside. All right, he said that was fine with him and his family. We're going to head over around 7. Wait, what? Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I have to shower and get ready. Jess booked it out of my room, practically jumping with joy. What just happened? I angrily marched up to my brother and poked his chest, glaring at him. What the hell do you think you're doing lying to her like that? You know she's going to find out the truth and hate you. Whoa, Cher, I wasn't lying about any of it. I don't even want to go over to his house, but you told me to do it. If anything, you got us into this mess. And I'm not going to let you guys do it alone because I actually do like her. I searched my brother's face for any signs that he was lying. His nose would usually wrinkle up his eyebrows when he did, but there were no wrinkles. I stepped back. If you're telling the truth, then why did you look so fucking scared earlier when I asked you to call him? Because it's the truth. The one night I slept over at his house immediately drew the line for me when it came to that kind of stuff. There's a reason he only comes over to our house, Cher. Chris's voice wavered a bit, expressing true worry. Well, what the hell happened when you slept over at his house? Chris's face paled a bit and he licked his lips. He was really on edge now. Peter's bedroom faces the Latoff. He fell asleep before I did, and I got bored, so I was messing around in his room and somehow ended up looking out the window. It was really dark out except for the outdoor lantern they keep in the little parking lot. It works at night, but not much. There was someone standing a few feet away from the lantern. Or something. I couldn't really make it out. Its back was facing me. It was large and dark, and it didn't really seem to be standing, more like floating. It really creeped me out, but I couldn't look away, like I was hypnotized by it or something. And then it turned around and looked at me. All I saw were pure white eyes. No mouth, no nose, no anything. And it let out this blood-curdling scream. I ran back and shook Peter, who already began to wake up from the scream. Chris's face twisted in disgust and distress. He told me to lock the windows immediately, and he locked his door. We shut the shades, and we kind of just sat in dark silence till I don't know how long. We didn't fall asleep until later. What really fucking scares me is that in the morning, when we pulled his shades up, there were faded scratches on his windows, like something was trying to get in. And he told me it happens often. They've already replaced their front windows 3 times since then because the scratches were getting so bad. They practically have to put their house on lockdown every night, Cher. That's why Peter chose an out-of-state college. I felt my stomach twist in a knot and immediately felt lightheaded. I wanted to back out of this. No, I needed to back out of this. Suddenly, Jess stepped out from around the corner, and the look from her face, she heard everything. I took a shaky breath. Jess, I don't know if this is a good idea anymore. Cher, we have to go. We have to know. We're all a little scared here, but we're gonna have each other. We'll be fine. Plus, if it's all true and is haunted, you'll be able to leave before anything happens to you, if that's a possibility. Jess practically begged me. I swear it's like she heard what my brother said, but his words hadn't fully registered. Are you insane? Did you not hear what he just said? You were listening, right? I know, calm down. You think I came here knowing you had a creepy job at a potentially haunted building and I didn't bring the essentials? Jess rolled her eyes at me and moved past my brother and I to get into my room and grab her book bag, beginning to dig through it and pull out all kinds of stuff. I have rosary beads, holy water, 2 Bibles, salt, and 5 giant sage sticks. My eyes were wide. Chris's eyes were wide. Needless to say, we were surprised. My best friend had come prepared for it all. We'll be fine, guys. We have each other and we have protection. I really want to experience something cool, and if you guys are going to be buzzkills, then I'm just going to go over to Peter's house by myself, Jess declared, staring at us. She really wasn't going to back down. Chris and I looked at each other, mutually agreeing to give in. We weren't going to let her go by herself. No way in hell. So we began packing. Here we go. We pulled up to Peter's house around 6:50. I studied the house and was basically going to risk my sanity for the night. It was modern looking and painted light blue with white shutters for the windows and had a wraparound porch. It seemed harmless. Peter came out to greet us and led us inside. He introduced Jess and I to his parents before giving us a quick tour of the house. It was nice and felt really welcoming, actually. Not at all what I had expected. After eating the pizza we had ordered for dinner, the four of us gathered in Peter's room. Jess and I asked him about my brother's experience, which he confirmed. He continued to tell us his own experiences while living in the house for the past several years. Lights turning on and off at the Latoff randomly at night, loud bangs coming from outside, scratches on his windows, and of course the dark figure. Everyone had fallen asleep before me. I was too on edge to rest, and I eventually worked up the nerve to creep over to the window and peek out. No one and nothing at all was in the parking lot except for a few parked cars. The most relieving of all, no scratches on the window. I gave out a big sigh before turning back and getting into my sleeping bag. We all slept through the night. Thankfully, no experiences. Jess was kind of bummed though. I had woken up with a newfound energy that morning and began to pack our stuff away, helping Peter clean his room in the process and open his shades. Along the once clear glass were 3 scratches that had not been there the night before. I slowly turned around to face the 3 of them, and their facial expressions matched mine. Holy shit. Chris was the first to speak up. What now? This is proof. Something isn't right about your workplace, Cher, and you can't tell me I'm wrong now. We have to investigate. Jess spoke frantically while packing her things. Investigate? Are you fucking crazy? This just proves that there's something that haunts the parking lot in Peter's house. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She can clearly see that something tried to open the window to get to us last night, and she wants to investigate? My best friend was gonna get us killed. Cher, look. I leave tomorrow, and I want to end this weekend with a bang. We'll just sneak into the back entrance of the Latoff tonight and check out the master room, okay? I mean, no one's staying in there right now, so what's the harm? The harm? Peter spoke up now. I've had this thing harassing me and my family for years. It's not a fucking joke, Jess. It scratches my window. So bad that I keep having to get new ones. It's not something you want to mess with. No one said you had to come, Peter. Actually, none of you have to come. But I'm gonna go tonight. I want to know what this thing is. Jess slung her bag over her shoulder and grabbed her rolled-up sleeping bag before heading downstairs and out to Chris's car, all of us on her tail. Jess, you have to be reasonable here. You can't go alone. I pleaded for her to back down. What if she got hurt? Or nothing happened and she went to jail for breaking and entering or trespassing? Then come with me, Cher. She threw her stuff into the backseat and leaned against the car with her arms crossed. Look, Jess, I agree with Cher and Peter. Having seen this thing too, it's definitely not safe, Chris said. Maybe with Chris's influence she would stay. At least it's not safe if you go alone, so I'll come with you. My heart dropped. In no way was he helping. Great. Anyone else? Peter and I stayed silent. Jess just shrugged and motioned for my brother to get in the car. Wait. I'll go. I turned to Peter, who started to walk over to get in the passenger side. Peter! I swear I was the only one with common sense around here. Look, Cher, my best friend could be getting himself into a pretty shitty situation. And being that I have more experience with this than all 3 of you, it only makes sense that I go as a type of guide, I guess. Peter gave an apologetic smile. I wanted to disagree, and I wanted to continue to argue with them. I wanted to stall them until the next day, but I couldn't. He was going to help his best friend to be an aid if Chris or Jess got into trouble, and I was supposed to be Jess's best friend. Alright, then I'm coming too. I'm not going to be the odd one out here, and you could really use me since it seems like I'm the only one with common sense. I threw my stuff into the trunk and got into the back seat beside Jess, who was now beaming like a little kid. Yay for creepy adventures, she yelled. I could hardly consider this an adventure. I stifled a laugh at Peter's comment, and Jess just flipped in the bird in response. The rest of the day we spent at my house getting prepared for the night ahead. We packed everything you'd think we would need. Flashlights, batteries, bug spray, first aid kits, sweatshirts, socks, and of course all of the paranormal protection that Jess had. Except she kept a secret from us. You brought a fucking Ouija board? Are you out of your mind? It's bad enough we're going to try and experience something up close, but now you want to piss it off? Piss off and stop being such a crybaby. Bad things only happen to people in movies because they don't use it correctly. Jess and Peter had been arguing for the past hour. It was already dark and we were supposed to leave soon. Not only was I shitting myself because I was so nervous, but I also had a headache from their yelling. As I rubbed my temples in irritation, Chris got between the two. Would both of you get a fucking grip? You're gonna wake up the whole damn neighborhood, not to mention our parents already suspect something. That shut them up, thank God. Thankfully our parents were heavy sleepers, so they didn't wake up from all the fighting. We had come up with this lie that we were gonna go to a party in a nearby town, and we were just gonna camp out in their backyard for the night, to explain why we had bags full of shit. Surprisingly, it worked. Though I think all of us, except for Jess, wish it hadn't. We ended up parking my brother's car in Peter's driveway, and we just walked across the street. We made sure to be very quiet as we rounded the building in the back. Luckily, there were no cars in the parking lot, which indicated that no one was staying that night, and that Dale and Barbara had already gone home. The back door was located on the opposite side of our destination, but the front door had an alarm, so we couldn't go through there. The back door was actually a rundown basement door, made from one thick piece of wood, and the lock on the door was a regular lock that you would use on a locker in high school. Dale had mistakenly given me the code. Using my flashlight, I got it unlocked within a few seconds. We maneuvered our way through the dark and damp basement, having to watch out for rocks sticking out of the ground since the floor was never cemented over. The basement stairs led up to the kitchen, and I was the tour guide from then on. No one else had ever been in the building. This meant that I had to be the leader and go first. I tried to stall the inevitable. I really did, showing them the other rooms and the cool facts and story that I had learned that belonged to the rooms, but Jess was impatient and relentless. Finally, we reached the master. I reached forward and tried the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Joy overwhelmed me, and I turned back to look at the three of them. Oh well, it's locked. I should have guessed it would be. I shrugged and began to push them aside so we could head back the way we came. It's okay, guys. I brought some paper clips and bobby pins, just in case. I'll pick the lock. Jess kneeled down in front of the door and began to rummage through her bag using her flashlight. I knew it was too good to be true, and she was right. She picked the lock without any problems and tried the handle again. It gave away this time, and the door opened. A rush of unsettling atmosphere hit me, giving me goosebumps and making my mouth go dry. We all just stared into the empty room, no one moving an inch. Even Jess hesitated. So, who's going first? Peter's voice shook as he spoke, and I couldn't blame him. I was petrified. Surprisingly, Chris was the first to make his way inside the room. We all followed close behind him, our flashlights guiding us. It was the same as I'd remembered. It looked as if nothing had moved, like no one had stayed there since I got hired, and I couldn't blame anyone. I sure as hell wouldn't stay there. More minutes passed as we continued to study the room. As time went on, the three of them seemed to calm down and get comfortable in the room. The uneasiness never left me. I was on high alert, and Jess slammed the door shut, making us all flinch. She turned on one of the bedside lamps and began to remove items from her bag. Well guys, time to set up camp. We're gonna be here for a while. We sat in the dimly lit room for what seemed like hours, but was probably only a couple minutes. Jess busied herself by cleaning the room, burning sage and reciting passages from the Bible, pouring a line of salt in front of the door and all windows, and even rubbing some holy water on our foreheads, which made me think of the Lion King. Sure, I thought you said there's an oval window in here. Peter was walking around the room, probably trying to distract himself. On the outside, you can see it would be placed in this room, but when you come down here, you don't see it. I think maybe it let too much light in and they covered it up with drywall or something. It did look pretty old. I shrugged. My explanation made no sense. No way, I bet there's a secret room or something in here. Jess had finished her little cleansing ritual and began to inspect every piece of furniture in the room, looking for a secret lever or button. Jess, we're already here under weird circumstances. I really doubt that there's... Chris was cut off when Jess opened one of the nightstand drawers and pressed down on the dark piece of wood that was the drawer's bottom. We heard a large creak come from behind us, making us all jump in surprise. In the back of the room, where a solid wall had once been, was a piece of the wall jutting outward into a secret and dark room. Well, I'll be damned. This stuff usually only happens in movies, Chris exclaimed as we all walked towards the room. Peter got out his flashlight and shined it inside. Completely empty, except for a few mouse droppings along the floor and a little bit of light in the corner of the room. It was moonlight passing through what we could now see was the oval window. Jess smiled as she walked completely inside and turned to us. This is it. This is where we'll communicate with whatever's here. A few minutes later, we were all sitting on an extra blanket we had brought, with our flashlights on so we could see the Ouija board in the middle of us. We were so fucking stupid. I wanted to go back in time and yell at us, tell us to run and never come back, tell my past self to never respond to the Craigslist ad, tell Jess to never buy a Ouija board, but it's too late now. We all put 2 fingers on the planchette as Jess began to lead the questions. Is anyone here with us? We waited. I was so nervous that my fingers were barely touching. Nothing. Is anyone here with us? Jess repeated, a little more demanding this time. And after a few seconds, the planchette began to move. What the fuck? Chris, are you moving this? Peter passed my brother a glare. No. Jess? No. Cher? I shook my head. Oh my fucking god. Oh my fucking god. We all anxiously watched as our hands in the planchette continued to move, finally landing over yes. I let out a long and shaky breath. This could not be happening right now. Okay, awesome, Jess said as she looked around with excitement. I expressed the opposite. What's your name? She asked, with the same amount of demand as before. The planchette began to move across the board again, to land on different letters. First A, then B, then back to A, T, U. Abatu? Strange name. When did you die? With a name like that, I would have guessed centuries ago. The planchette moved, but it didn't stop. Not even on any numbers. Guys? What is it doing? My brother asked in confusion. It seemed like the planchette was moving in a figure 8 motion. Jess suddenly gasped and took control of the planchette, making all of us jerk to the side as she dragged our hands along with it. Goodbye, she screamed, before waving off all of our fingers from the board. Jess, what the hell? What's wrong? I asked. Her face was pale now, and she honestly looked terrified as she turned to the rest of us. It was making an infinity sign, meaning it never lived or died, and we should leave now. It's not something we should mess with. She was cut off by a chilling scream that came from outside of the master. It was so loud and high-pitched that we had to cover our ears. The atmosphere had suddenly turned very dark, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I tried to talk to the rest of them when I felt a strong force wrap itself around my throat, making me gasp for air. As I looked around the room, everyone else was in the same state. It's like something had knocked the air out of our lungs and we didn't have the strength to breathe in again. We were suffocating. As we struggled, the master door became unhinged and flew back a few feet. A dark and mist-like figure entered the room, staring at us with large eyes as it approached. All I could do was cough and try to back away, still fighting to get air. I willed myself to stand up, but my legs and hands wouldn't move and suddenly collapsed back onto the ground, stiff as boards. It had paralyzed us. I could still move my eyes and was able to catch a glimpse to my left of my brother, and my right was Peter, but I couldn't lift my head to see Jess. The figure now floated over us and stopped at me, leaning down as if to study me. All I saw was darkness and white eyes. No pupils, no nose or a mouth, just eyes in the black mist. Another ear-piercing scream echoed through the room as the figure turned and moved over to my brother, repeating the same studying motion, followed by another scream. I couldn't move my hands to cover my ears and felt a shooting pain in my left ear before feeling a warm liquid move down from the side of my face and the back of my head. My eardrum had popped and I could only hear from one side now, as if I was wearing earbuds and one had blown. The figure repeated this process to Peter too, followed by my right eardrum popping as well. It was all silence now as the figure moved over to Jess. I could tell she was laying by the door that the black figure was positioned, but couldn't hear to tell what was going on. Neither could Chris or Peter. When I took another glance at my brother, there was blood dripping from his nose and his eyes were closed. He was knocked unconscious. Was he dead? I felt my face flush with heat as I struggled to regain some movement in my limbs, but to no avail. I began to panic. Were we going to die? My tongue began to tingle for a few seconds before an overwhelming force began to weigh itself down on my head. My body began to jolt and squirm. It felt like I was being crushed to death. As I was finally able to regain movement of my mouth and scream out in pain along with Peter and Chris, darkness enveloped me and I passed out. Now, you may be wondering, what happened after? The next day when I came to, I was in the hospital. Apparently someone had heard screaming coming from the Latoff and called 911. The police found my body unconscious, along with Peter and Chris, in the hallway outside of the master. Jess was nowhere to be found. When examined, my brother had suffered a broken nose, and I had suffered hearing loss in both ears. Now I use hearing aids. Peter came out with constant migraines, and we never spoke a word of what happened or why we were there because we didn't want people thinking we were crazy. Jess's parents filed a missing persons case. It's been 3 years. Dale didn't charge us with trespassing, but I did get fired. I was gonna quit anyway, so he saved me some energy, to be honest. Peter and his family ended up moving shortly after. He told my brother they couldn't take living across from the building anymore. My brother and I are no longer close. He moved out to Boston for a job in business, but I stayed in the area and rented a home in a nearby town. I often have night terrors over the traumatic event, and I blame myself for Jess's disappearance. I constantly hope to see her knock on my front door with a crazy story on how she escaped the creature and had been in some spiritual hiding or something like that. But I know that would never happen. I know she's gone. I had done some research recently on the property. The Latoff used to inhabit a late 19th century cult that would perform strange rituals and sacrifices to the spirit world. Sadly, this came as no shock to me. I still struggle to come to terms with what happened, but I hadn't thought to share my story until this morning. I have a beautiful bay window in my room, which I sit on every morning to look outside and drink my coffee. But this morning, the glass on my window was defaced by 3 long scratches and a carved J. And that's the end of that story. I'm genuinely shocked right now. I honestly think these stories keep getting better and better. Thank you guys again for continuing to send me stories and for continuing to support me in this series. I really do love this series because I love these stories. I love reading them, and I love that we can bond over you guys sending me stories and shit. So if you guys have any stories that you want me to make a video on or that you just want me to read, you can send them to me. I always have my social media link down below. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye! I'm sweating. Always sweating. Always sweating. Realizing he would be my partner. It doesn't even say partner. We continue to talk. Oh. It was making an infinity.